Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar titled Connecting PI System Sensor Data to SAP PM Equipment Data. And now I'm very excited to introduce today's speakers, both of who are colleagues here at Element. Steve Beamer is our VP of Customer Success and guides customers on how to use Element Unify to scale operations efficiency using data. He's a former Element Unify customer with more than 30 years of experience and has led a major digital transformation effort at a previous role before joining Element. Steve has a deep understanding of operations excellence and the systems that support it. He's served in site and executive leadership roles at ExxonMobil, Hess, Peabody, and BP, and he's based in Houston where he lives with his family. Our second speaker, Dallas Swift, is a forward-deployed engineer at Element and is passionate about helping industrial companies make better use of their data. He's a chemical engineer by training, and Dallas worked with PI System customers at OSIsoft, which is now part of Aviva, for several years before joining Element. While at OSIsoft, he developed an interest in industrial data science and transitioned to a full-time data science role, ultimately joining Element. In his current role, he supports customers in industries ranging from power generation to food production and more. Hi guys, and welcome to both of you. Steve, now I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Juanita, for that great introduction. So the agenda today is we're going to ask you a few just quick short questions to help us gauge where we're going and get the content right. So we'll start with a question. We'll go through some of the common business challenges that we see in our customers and I faced as a customer before coming to Element. We'll show you a quick look at the objective of what we're trying to get to of a simple dashboard that you can build once you get this data connected. We'll get your feedback one more time. Then we'll go through a software demo where we'll show you how to get connected. We'll show you what the capabilities of Element Unify are. And we'll show you how you can use some of your other information like P&IDs and extract the data straight into Unify. Then we'll do a final question. We'll have a little bit of a discussion and we'll leave about 10 minutes at the end to answer your questions. So as Juanita said, please type your questions in to the question panel as we go so that we can have some questions to answer at the end and tell you what you want to know. And with that, we're going to have a quick little poll. So please take a moment to answer the question in the poll, and then we'll move into the next section.
Thanks, Steve. We'll just give everyone a few minutes. If you could, please select your responses and we'll share the results shortly. All right, we have results. Let me share those.
Okay, as you can see that 40% of the people said there's a lack of context in the data. 20% of people said no access to the data. 20% of the people are having difficulty in scaling, and 20% said all of the above. So these are very common problems. I faced these problems when I was in industry. So let's get into talking about how we solve these problems. Let's talk about the business challenges. So first, I want to talk a little bit about what Element is so that you understand what you're going to see when we go into the software. So we have a lot of different sources of information, real-time data, PI, SAP is what we're going to focus on today, but you've also got laboratory information, you've got engineering information, you may have HAZOPs and other types of safety information. And what Unify does is what I used to tell my executives to help them understand what this was in my previous assignment was that Unify helps you make a Google map to your data. It lets you know, it helps you understand when you go somewhere that you've never been before, you know, where do I get a cup of coffee? Where do I park? Where do I get lunch? And that's what this does for your data. It tells you know, what sensors belong to what equipment in what you're going to see today, what lab samples go with what process. So it's a cloud native enterprise scale system of record for industrial asset metadata. And I know there's a lot of words and you may not have heard some of those words before, but metadata is the information about the information. So we're not pulling all your source data in, we're just mapping out where it is and what it belongs to and connecting it together. And so we can scale from the cloud to the edge. We really do three things in the software. We do these very well. We integrate the data. So we build the context at scale in a no-code environment that's automated. And by automated, that means that when something changes in one of your source systems, it changes in Unify as well, so that that once you organize your data, it stays organized. And then we contextualize the data so we can bring content together from various systems to give you one clear picture of all your information. And we can also then bring in other data that people may have in spreadsheets and other things to add to make the data even more rich. And then we allow you to govern those models so that you can see where your data come from and where it's going, and be able to know that when you put that data into an analytic, that it's good data that you're making decisions off of. And we store all that in what we call a knowledge graph. And that's how we produce that Google map that I talked about, that lets you search and store and present the data in multiple formats for different users in your organization. And it's built on a solid foundation of technology. The latest technology, event-driven adaptive architecture. It's got security, it's scalable, and it's built in the cloud. And so we can sit on top of the, cloud sources. We partner with AWS, we partner with Microsoft Azure, OSIsoft, and SAP is what we're talking about today. So here's a simple equipment monitoring dashboard built in Power BI. And that's the ultimate goal of putting this data together. So we're going to show you how we get to this through these three webinars that we're putting on. But today we're going to show you how we connect the data so that a user can build this dashboard very simply and quickly. So you could do this or something like it easily for yourself. Now we're going to jump to one more quick poll question, and I'm going to hand over to Dallas, and he's going to actually walk you through a demonstration of the software.
Thanks, Bima. Poll is up. Please select your responses and we'll give everyone a few minutes to do that. Awesome. Thank you very much. We're about to close the poll, so just a few more seconds. Thank you. Dallas or Beamer, do you care to comment on the results we see?
Yes, since I'll be talking here, it sounds like got a lot of all of the above, and this is a lot of use cases that we have seen. So hopefully what we've put together here to demonstrate for you will resonate, since it touches on some of these and some of the later webinars we'll touch on them as well. All right, thank you for that introduction. And before I go into the software, what I want to come back to is this equipment monitoring dashboard that Steve showed earlier. And there's a few, if any of you have put something together like this, this may sound familiar, but there's a few different things going on here behind the scenes that I want to highlight. First, we have in this top panel, these are time series data. This is current measurements for 3 different assets. And for this to work, we need to know that these data, in this case, we'll talk about stored in the PI system, and I'll talk about specifically PI and SAP, but just have in the back of your head that we can work with other systems as well. But that's just going to be the focus of this talk. So we have these PI tags, and it has this information, but what's not there in the PI tags is that these values are associated with the right asset and with the right measurement. So that's something that needs to come together to get this dashboard to work. Another piece is you'll notice here that there's asset information and work order information. And again, what this dashboard does is it brings all this together so you can easily find relevant information by asset. And so what we're doing is we're connecting these tags, this time series data, to an asset, connecting that asset to its other SAP-based asset information into work orders. So these are all the things going on that I want to have in your head as we go through the product. So with that, I'm going to go into Element Unify here. And I'll just take you a moment to orient you what's going on. On the left is our navigation pane, and this is where we can look at the different areas of the software that I'll touch on a few of those today. And then this is your workspace here, right in the middle. And I'll try to highlight what parts of the workspace I'll be talking about as I go through them. So as I mentioned with that dashboard, we're taking time series data, we're taking work order information, and we're associating with assets. And the question is, what is an asset? And that's where we have our template library. And so I'm going to go into that. And what this is a repository for you to define what you mean when you refer to a certain asset. So in this case, we have a centrifugal compressor. And we have a few here to get you started. We have many others that we have as starting points for different types of equipment. And of course, you can build your own. But what these templates do is they contain the sorts of information you expect to see for a particular asset. And this lets you, when building those dashboards, the dashboards like the one we showed earlier, you sort of know what types of information to expect when you're looking at a particular asset because it has a template. Now I'm going to click here. This is on the Dataset Catalog. And of course, we're working with these data and we need to bring the data in. And so this is a catalog of all the different types of data that we've brought into Unify. Again, what I'll be showing you here are sample data that we have out of the box, but of course you'll bring in your own data. You start working with this product. But if I click on a data set, so we have our SAP work orders, I'll have information about that data. And if I look at the preview, you'll see here is that work order list they're bringing in. And we can connect directly to these different source systems, have push out updates on a regular basis, or we can connect offline, which is sort of what we recommend when getting started so that you sort of know how the data is going to fit together before building in those live connections. And so that's what I'll be showing here. Now, the last piece that I want to talk about are the asset pipelines. And this is a really key part of this whole process. In that, if we think back to that dashboard, there's your PI data, there's that SAP asset information, SAP work order information, and the assets, and those all need to be connected. And when you have those data sets coming in from those different systems, they are not yet connected. And so the asset pipelines are how we let you define those connections. And I've already created one here called SAP PI Data Model, so I'm gonna look into that. And there's sort of a lot going on this screen, so I'll just take a second to explain. On the left here are the different data sets that you can use, the different transformations that are available, and different outputs. And I won't spend time talking about what these do individually, but what I will say is each transformation, and the transformations are represented by these dark gray sort of rectangles, is a specific manipulation of the data, kind of extracting the important metadata. And these are designed to be low to no code, to be usable by people who are maybe subject matter experts in their process or familiar with PI, but might not be as comfortable with, say, like a traditional ETL type of approach or writing custom code. And we also have on this pipeline canvas here, these lighter gray squares, and those are the data sets. And we can think of the data as flowing through the pipeline from upstream, which are the data sets, through each transformation and down to the outputs on the right. And if I click one of these flows, we can see a preview in this bottom center of what that data is. And I'll just open up one of those transformations. So here we have our PyTag list. And looking at this tag list and thinking about how we want to join this with a information that might be in SAP, I can look at the preview and see this description field has what looks like the name of an asset and some description that measures what that particular tag is measuring, which is great. Now you'll notice that these are not all in the same place. There's a rotation speed at the end, at the beginning. And so what we need to do is define some rules to get that information that we really care about and extract that. And so what we have is a parse transformation here. And what the parse transformation does is it allows you to define the pattern of information that you want to look for. So in this case, we find if there's a description in the beginning, like this rotational speed, we pull that out. We pull out the equipment code, so P for pump or C for compressor, and we pull out the equipment number. And then if there's a description at the end, we grab that as well. And you're able to do this using expressions. And again, this is low to no code designed for users who might not be as comfortable writing their own code from scratch. But if you do have more advanced users, you can define your own regular expressions in order to define the patterns that you'll see. And now I'm going to take a step back, and I won't walk through each of these transformations, but what I will say is after some cleanup on your PyTag list and your SAP work orders with the asset information, eventually you can bring these data sets together and have all this information in one place. So you have, say, a tag name, and then you have this equipment information that you're able to get from the description. But as we look through this preview, we can see all the relevant work orders associated with that asset. We see asset information like the manufacturer and the model number. And so we can repeat this process, and in the end, you get a data model that has everything available in one spot. And you can bring that out to client tools, things like Power BI and Excel. And what I'll also show for just a moment is a lot of times, and I think I saw this come out in the poll question, but there are a lot of times the tags don't have all the right information available. And in order to figure out what assets are associated with particular tags, what we see a lot of times are people going to PNIDs, such as this one, to figure out if I have a tag that is associated with this this asset, T11100, and then I see a tag associated with this instrument, I need to know what this instrument's measuring. And what we have are tools that we've created specifically for this purpose to make it easier for your subject matter experts to go through these diagrams and figure out what instruments are associated with which equipment to address that challenge of the tags themselves not having enough information on them to accurately and consistently associate them with the correct assets and measurements. We have one more poll that we'd love if you had a chance to look at for a moment, and then we'll end with some discussion.
All right, thanks, Dallas. I'm about to launch the poll. Everyone, please select your responses and we'll share the results. And here are the results.
All right, so as you can see, this stuff is hard, or you probably would have already done it. A lot of people are getting started, but what I found when I was in industry is it's really difficult to do this, even though you have all the information and your people know what information belongs where. You still end up spending a long time getting started or trying to understand what's going on. So let's talk a little bit about that. And I'm not seeing a lot of questions in the queue. So if you have questions, now would be a good time to type them in because we have about 6 minutes left. But one of the things I found as a customer was that this made it really easy to map data together. And I had an issue with sites. I had 44 offshore platforms, and they already had their system set up. They already knew what equipment went to what because the operators worked there day in and day out, but they were not consistent. So when I needed a subject matter expert at the corporate engineering center or somewhere to look at something, they had to go figure out, what does pump 36 do on this platform? And so we were able to contextualize that data above the platform in the cloud without changing what the platform did. And that was very powerful because it let us scale really fast because we can build the data model, we can build the analytics on top of that, and then all you need to do is go back and do what Dallas just showed you to connect that asset's data to the common data model. So Dallas, maybe you could tell us some of the challenges you run into, some of the really common challenges you run into at the customers.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So along the lines of what you're saying, one common challenge that we see is inconsistent naming patterns. And this could be, assets were added at different times when different standards were adopted, or maybe the one plant was acquired from another company that used a different naming standard. But that's one of the things we've seen, and one of the things that how we're able to handle that within our software is it makes it very easy to see when naming patterns being followed and when it isn't. And when it isn't, you're able to easily go through and adapt the new naming pattern, and so you're still able to extract the information you need very quickly and bring that in and kind of unify those data sets.
So does Unify store any of my process information? Does it store my sensor data?
So it does not. The sensor data itself will continue to live within your, in this case, in the Pi system. It is the metadata itself that is brought in. So that is things like tag names, tag descriptions, tag configuration information, basically whatever we need in order to associate those tags to like assets or to associate like the SAP data to those tags as well. Is what's brought into Unify, but the time series data itself will continue to live in your historians.
So really, other than possibly giving it a better name or a more consistent naming, the source data is protected by my existing governance and controls. Is that correct?
That's right.
So one of the challenges I found when I was trying to do this on a big project, a lot of people want to have access to the data, and being able to use the Unify to put the data together, it was easy for them to get it, and we could put it in the form that they wanted to see it. So that was another benefit I got out of it. And when we did that, it helped people. People could access data through screens like the Power BI screen that Dallas showed, much easier than they could by accessing SAP and Pi, because we had a lot of infrequent users, right? We had a lot of engineers that just wanted to know, I'm doing a failure analysis, how many times has this pump failed, or how many times has this heat exchanger had a fouling problem? And they could do that through the Power BI versus through having to go remember how to log into SAP. And so I found that was quite beneficial. A lot of people liked that access because they didn't have to remember how to use SAP.
One question I see, Beamer, how does this tool interact with PyAsset Framework? This is the tool we're using to add context to our data, so I'm wondering what element Unify will add.
Okay, Dallas, you want to take that one really quick? And I think this is probably our last question because we're about out of time.
Sure. Yeah, so we work very closely with PyAsset Framework. One common use case we see is using this to build out a PyAF hierarchy. But if you have one already, that's also very common. And what we can help with in those cases is bringing what you've built out already in to Unify and using that as a standard to maybe roll out that hierarchy to more than one plant or to different areas of the plant, because that's again something we often see is you kind of get started with a pilot, but then you need to roll out and standardize across an enterprise, and that's where Unify can help.
All right, thank you all for coming. I'm going to hand over to Juanita to close us out today. And if you have further questions, please just email us or give us a call.
Thank you so much, Beamer. So everyone, thank you again for your attendance. Just a quick reminder, we still have 2 more webinars in this series. The first one is coming up April 7th, 11:30 a.m. or 2:30 p.m., either PDT or EDT. And the next Wednesday after that, April 14th, will be the final webinar in the series. That will be starting at 12:30 PDT or 3:30 EDT, and both of those are 30 minutes. We highly encourage you to try Element Unify free for 30 days. This will give you an opportunity to see how the software can work for you. You can go to our website, visit our website, and it will be a button you will see right on the homepage to the right that says try free, or you can just reach out to us again through the website, and we'd be happy to help. We have additional resources on our resources page on the website. And as always, you can reach out to us through social media and also, as mentioned, on the site. Thank you so much for your attention and your time, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.